Have you ever wondered what would happen if a computer program got so incredibly good at coding and finding security flaws that the United States government actually labeled it a national security threat? I mean, think about it. It's almost like a digital nuclear weapon. Well, welcome to today's Explainer. We are going to break down a massive, real-world geopolitical case study looking at the unprecedented government recall of Anthropic's AI. This is literally the exact moment the invisible war for artificial intelligence control exploded out into the real world. So how on earth did we get here? Let's find out.
So what actually happens when a coding AI is deemed a national security threat? Well, picture this. Just 72 hours after being released to the public, the government steps in and essentially outlaws it. The whole situation escalated so incredibly fast that they went as far as legally banning the very foreign engineers who helped build the model from even logging into it. Now, you might be sitting there thinking, okay, but what does this matter to me? I'm not a software engineer. Well, this sudden government crackdown is a massive shift. It's going to fundamentally change the apps on your phone, the software that runs your bank, and the entire global flow of information. We are quite literally watching the internet fracture in real time, shifting from an open, borderless web into a highly locked down digital landscape where governments get to dictate exactly who uses what tech based purely on their nationality.
All right, let's jump right into part 1, the unprecedented recall and the end of borderless code.
Guys, we are witnessing the very first commercial AI recall in human history. The U.S. government actually issued an emergency export control directive against Anthropic's brand new cutting-edge AI systems, Claude Fable 5 and Mythos 5. They cited extreme national security risks, and this directive mandated a complete global shutdown. Now, because it is practically impossible to instantly verify the exact nationality of every single user across the web, Anthropic had absolutely no choice. They had to pull the plug and disable these models for everyone everywhere. To really wrap your head around this, think about a traditional export control. Normally, governments use these to stop physical weapons, fighter jets, missile parts, things like that, from crossing borders into hostile nations. But applying that same logic to invisible code floating around on the internet, that is entirely new terrain. This historic clampdown isn't just dry bureaucracy, it reveals an intense, dramatic standoff with defense officials, and it seriously threatens the future of the internet as we know it.
Moving right along to part 2, the weaponization of code, and understanding the actual threat here.
To truly grasp why the government suddenly pulled the fire alarm on this, we really need to understand a concept called autonomous hacking. In plain English, autonomous hacking is the ability of an AI to analyze millions, and I mean millions of lines of computer code, identify hidden software bugs, and then automatically write the fixes for them over a matter of hours or days without any human supervision whatsoever. It's just out there, operating entirely on its own.
Let's put this into perspective. Think of traditional AI, the kind you and I might use every day to write emails or brainstorm ideas, like a smart car that has a strict speed limiter built in. No matter how hard you stomp on the gas pedal, the car's computer safely stops you from doing anything reckless. It has guardrails, right? It politely refuses malicious tasks. But Anthropic's new Mythos architecture? It is a completely different beast. It is like a multi-million-dollar Formula One racing engine with fully autonomous capabilities. It's not just a chatty assistant, it's an autonomous agent, purpose-built for long-running, super-complex software engineering.
And here is the kicker. Because this AI can autonomously find and fix bugs, it is fundamentally what's called a dual-use technology. This is why we're talking about shifting from restricting physical fighter jets to restricting lines of code. Think about it. If an AI can autonomously find a software flaw to fix it, a hostile military could theoretically use that exact same capability to exploit the flaw instead. The geopolitical stakes here are just absolutely massive. We're talking about the potential to literally shut down critical infrastructure. Imagine a foreign entity using an autonomous coding agent to penetrate hospital networks, or manipulate electrical grids, or even completely disrupt global supply chains, all without a single human having to intervene. Because these new models are uniquely powerful in that way, the government is treating them exactly like advanced military blueprints that need to be kept under the strictest export controls.
Okay, let's get into part 3. The secret war and the pushback. These were the 72 hours that changed tech forever. Let's trace this incredibly rapid 72-hour window, right from the launch to the total shutdown. On day one, Anthropic launched twin models, Fable 5, which was heavily filtered for global businesses, and Mythos 5, an uncensored version offered only to a highly select group of cybersecurity experts under Project Glasswing. At first, the rollout began smoothly, but by day 3, things took a turn. Intelligence agencies discovered what's known as a narrow jailbreak. Now, a jailbreak is essentially a specific phrasing or a clever command that tricks the AI into bypassing all its built-in safety rules. In this case, it was a non-universal loophole that could allegedly pinpoint vulnerabilities for foreign hackers. Well, this discovery triggered an immediate, severe reaction. On day 3, at exactly 5:21 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, Washington dropped the legal hammer. Anthropic's executive team received a binding legal directive that halted global access instantly. The government essentially decided that the risk of this coding capability falling into the hands of global adversaries was just way too high to allow the software to remain online for even one more minute.
But as you might expect, Anthropic did not back down quietly. Their CEO, Dario Amodei, came out and forcefully argued that the government's security claims were completely overhyped. He released a very candid public statement basically saying that the level of coding skill displayed by Fable 5 was already widely available in competing models, specifically pointing to OpenAI's GPT 5.5. Amodei's core argument was super technical. He insisted that finding a narrow loophole in one single model does not magically grant an adversary any fundamentally new capabilities that they couldn't already just go and access somewhere else. And he issued a huge warning. He said treating this minor jailbreak as a valid cause for a global recall sets a devastating precedent for the tech sector. In his view, this kind of heavy-handed government approach is going to completely freeze all new technology deployments simply because companies are going to be too terrified to launch anything that might accidentally trigger a massive federal shutdown.
So, you have to ask, why did the government move with such aggressive hostility over a seemingly minor loophole? Well, industry insiders and investigative reports suggest there's a much broader context here, involving a really tense, months-long secret standoff with the Pentagon. Earlier this year, tensions were reportedly just raging behind the scenes. The Department of Defense requested that Anthropic alter its terms of service so that the military could use its Claude models for things like domestic surveillance operations and the development of fully autonomous weapon systems. But Anthropic fiercely refused the integration, pointing straight to their strict corporate policies and safety guidelines.
Following Anthropic's fierce refusal to cooperate with the military, the government actually placed them on a highly damaging supply chain blacklist as retaliation. This draws a really fascinating historical parallel. Think back to the Cold War era. Back then, technology restrictions were heavily focused on physical hardware, stuff like high-tech military equipment, radar systems, and missile components. But today's modern export bans, they are targeting advanced AI models, commercial code bases, and API access. To a lot of industry experts looking at this recall was not just about a minor jailbreak loophole. It's viewed as a highly calculated act of political leverage. It sends a glaringly strong signal to the entire tech sector. If an AI developer refuses to build tools for the defense sector, the government can and will utilize national security laws to make sure that developer cannot easily sell their product to the global commercial market either.
That brings us to Part 4, the fall of the borderless web and the global domino effect.
So, how does this high-level legal dispute in Washington actually impact normal people and global engineering pipelines? Well, the reality is a massive downstream shockwave. We are already seeing an abrupt delay of next-generation software rollouts. Literally hundreds of global enterprises had spent months preparing their pipelines to use Fable 5 to build faster, more secure software for everything from hospital logistics to secure online banking. And overnight, those tools just vanished. For global software developers, the power dynamics have radically shifted. I mean, imagine being an international developer sitting in London or Bangalore who is relying on this AI to streamline your code. Suddenly, you can't. Complex internal walls are being rapidly built right inside tech companies. Foreign nationals are instantly restricted from accessing cutting-edge research workstations. Companies are now facing multi-million-dollar federal fines if their brilliant international employees so much as access restricted research. This is fundamentally shifting how international tech talent is hired, valued, and integrated globally.
And because of this aggressive restriction, we are witnessing the massive acceleration of what's being called the sovereign AI race. Countries like India, Japan, and various European nations are waking up to a really harsh new reality. This forced recall proves to them that they simply cannot rely on American tech giants for their future digital infrastructure. The sudden, terrifying realization is that Washington can completely pull the plug on an entire nation's access to vital AI software with a single afternoon memo. This dynamic is drastically fracturing the global technology sector. It's driving international leaders to panic and pushing them to build absolute digital independence.
Which brings us directly to the concept of sovereign AI. Basically, this refers to state-funded, localized computing infrastructure and open-source server farms that are built specifically to ensure a nation's independent digital survival. It is an inevitable, multi-billion-dollar global race toward localized independence. You know, for decades, the internet has been celebrated as this beautiful, borderless global village where information just flows freely. But this sudden push for sovereign AI, it heavily signals the arrival of absolute, hard borders in the digital space. The internet as we know it is quite literally being carved up, nation by nation.
And finally, Part 5, the new geopolitics of tech and the end of an era. To summarize all of this totally unprecedented recall proves that artificial intelligence is no longer just some commercial software asset to boost productivity. It is a critical, highly contested, and deeply fragmented element of global geopolitics. So, at the end of the day, it all really comes down to this core debate: safety or censorship. Now that governments are actively banning advanced AI based strictly on national borders, do world leaders have a legitimate right to lock down this technology for our public safety? Or is this a dangerous overreach that's going to stall human progress, cause mass censorship, and permanently fracture the internet? It's a hugely complex issue with absolutely no easy answers. Thank you so much for joining me to unpack this fascinating explainer today. Until next time, keep questioning the future.